Aloha everyone. First and foremost, thank you so much for coming out tonight and giving your time and your energy to this important meeting. Again, mahalo for coming. As mentioned, my name is Joseph Lapilio. I will be the facilitator for tonight's meeting. And I want to talk a little bit about the way the agenda is going to be going through the evening. First, we're going to be having a presentation from Cultural Surveys Hawaii to talk about the Agricultural Inventory Survey Plan. And that will be about maybe 50-55 minutes, at which point we want to open up for about an hour for any comments that you might have on the plan or any questions. Some of you have signed up outside to speak, and what we'd like to do is honor that sign up, and we'll go through the names. Right now we have about 11, 12 people that have signed up to speak, and we want to go through those names. When that's done, we want to open it up to see if anyone else has questions or any comments that they want to make. I think you notice that there's also some technology and other items around the room. When that's over, what we want to do is also have some time for you to go and speak individually, one-on-one, or with any of the people that are around the room that can provide you with maybe answers to your questions or can take any comments that you might have. So we want to provide as much opportunity as possible to gather information that you might want to share with us. I want to introduce some of the members of the team. Some of the people involved with the overall project. Faith Miyamoto, who is with RTD. She's the Environmental Planning Manager. Also Barbara Guerilla. She's with Parsons Brinckerhoff, and she's also the Environmental Planning Manager. She's a counterpart to Faith. I also want to introduce Amy Zaref, also from Parsons Brinckerhoff, who is environmental planner, and these are the primary people who are working on the project, as well as many, many other people. To provide the presentation tonight, we have staff from Cultural Surveys Hawaii, and I wanted to introduce them and so that you will know who they are after the presentation is over, or in the evening when you want to come up and speak to them. You'll be able to spot them out and come up and talk to them as well. The owner of the company is Hal Hammett. Hal, if you can stand, please. Todd Kuchen, behind there, up against the wall. Matt McDermott. Okay. And David Schreiber. These are members of Cultural Surveys Hawaii, and Hal will be coming up to make a presentation, but before Hal, I'd like to have Amy come up and give us a short overview.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the transit project. Along the back wall are boards that also provide a lot of information about our project. We'll have staff available after to talk with you about the project in general. The 20-mile project will have 21 stations from East Kapolei to Ala Moana. The train will run from 4 a.m. to midnight, and it'll run every 3 minutes. It'll go on the average of about 55 miles an hour, top speed with an average speed of 30 miles an hour. There are transportation benefits to the project with regard to ridership, reducing travel delay, and fewer vehicles on the road. There is also economic benefits to this project. They will create jobs during construction. There is potential for smart growth, development, and it is consistent with the city's plans. Environmental benefits. We'll have reduced air quality, we'll have better air quality, we'll better water quality, and less energy consumption. There are all these benefits to the project, which have been detailed in the final environmental impact statement, which will be available on the project engineering table after the presentation. The project, as Wayne had mentioned, is broken up into 4 segments, 4 construction areas. We're focusing on Area 4 City Center tonight for the Archaeological Inventory Survey. Just to give you a context of where we are. We've done some interesting work with station canopy design. We just wanted to give you a few slide showing some renderings of what the project would look like. East Kapolei Station. There's more pictures in the back. You're welcome to take the time and talk to our staff after and ask questions about the project. We don't want to take too much time because the primary focus of this meeting is to talk about the consultation with you on the development of the archaeological inventory survey plan.
Good evening, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I do want to say that we're going to be going through some technical information here tonight. I don't want to say I'll get through it as quickly as possible, but I will try to get through it in such a way that as many people as possible understand at least the concept of what we're trying to develop. I also want to point out that we don't have all the answers. This is just a starting point, and we're looking forward to getting the input from many, many different perspectives, both tonight and to continue. We will be continuing consultation throughout the process. I also want to point out that we'll be focusing, of course, on the city center section, phase 4 of the project tonight. And this has been the focus from the very beginning because of the history of previous finds, which I will go into, and of course, the historic context of Honolulu and Kaka'ako, which is a very heavily inhabited area. The section 4 runs from Middle Street Transit Center to Alamona Center. And what we want to talk about tonight and what we need your comments on. Any previous findings in the area that you wish to bring to our attention that we don't know about. Any historical or cultural sources you wish to bring to our attention. And comments on the scope of the archaeological investigation. And of course, comments on the proposed methods. The process is, first of all, to do the consultation, to develop the plan, develop a draft of the archaeological inventory survey plan, and perhaps for those of you for whom that name is unfamiliar, basically the purpose of an inventory survey plan is to develop the scope of the inventory survey to follow. Generally, we do inventory survey plans for projects which are complex or have generated great concern in the community. And this is one of those projects, certainly. After this draft is completed, we submit the inventory survey plan to the State Historic Preservation Division for review and approval. Then we proceed with the field work based on the provisions of the plan. It's all spelled out in the plan, and we've got to follow the plan. Then what happens is a very, very important step in this entire process. And one of the main purposes of this kind of work is to interpret the final, adjust the interim and final designs of the project to minimize impact to cultural resources, especially burials. To analyze and report on findings during and after completion of field work. Then the next step is to submit the archaeological inventory survey report to SHPD for their review and approval. And then what follows is, if there are findings, and there almost certainly will be, prepare a draft mitigation plan, implement the mitigation, and turn in the final report to SHPD. The results of the archaeological testing in this inventory survey, which follows the plan, will inform the interim and final design phases for the purpose of avoiding and protecting cultural resources. The goal is to perform archaeological testing in a way that allows the project to have the least possible effect on cultural resources and especially and including burials. All burial finds, because this is an inventory survey, will be considered previously identified, and treatment decisions will include appropriate consultation with the Oahu Island Burial Council and cultural and lineal descendants, according to Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 13-300. This, of course, is distinguished from what are termed inadvertent finds found during monitoring. And there will be consultation with interested parties throughout the entire process. Field work for the city center is scheduled to start in fall of 2011, and it's going to take about a year, we estimate at the present time. Although that is difficult to estimate because, of course, we don't know what the findings will be. The city center section construction is planned to start approximately spring of 2014, following all adjustments to design and all archaeological and other approvals. Okay, so let's take a look at the city center section. We have 9 stations going from Middle Street, Kalihi, Kapalama, Iwilei, Chinatown, Downtown, Civic Center, Kaka'ako, and Alamona Center. Let's take a look now at the history of this place, both from the point of archaeological findings and from the historical perspective. There's been much work done in the last 35 years. Much of this work in this section of the transit has been done as part of Hawaii Community Development Authority improvement districts. There's been a tremendous amount of work in infrastructure work in streets. And of course there have been many findings as a result of that work. Storm drains, sewer and water improvements, and electrical installations have been going on for many years. We also have increased volume of work going on in private property, in blocks, in urban Honolulu, and during archaeological inventory survey of these blocks and monitoring of ongoing construction, there have been many finds as well. We can also reconstruct past landscapes. This is a compilation map showing the Kaka'ako area, compiled from maps going back about 150 years and other sources, including oral sources, place names, which indicate activities that took place in that area, locations of previous heiau. We also have salt pans, we also have land commission awards, we also have lo'i, and most importantly, house sites. And then we have the distribution of the land commission awards from the Great Mahalo of the 1850s. We can plot the distribution of those. And in this particular map, we've only plotted the land commission awards that are adjacent to the transit route. There are many more in the outlying districts. We can see the pattern here. They tend to cluster, and they're quite intense, and they tend to cluster in areas where habitation was preferred and where there were many resources, particularly water sources for agriculture, both kula and lo'i agriculture. We have, as we go more towards the center of town, we have, again, another focus of land commission awards in the Kaka'ako area, particularly around South Street. Around the Civic Center station was a main area of habitation, and we'll see that later in the maps of the previous finds. Then we go to actually plotting these previous finds on the map, showing the route of the station. We have designated all of the study areas as shaded. We have previous burial finds located with a red triangle, and we have the route shown there with the stations. And this is on the eastern Kalihi and Kapalama portion. And then we have the previous findings in coastal Honolulu. It's quite a cluster around downtown. And again, in Kaka'ako, a really serious cluster around South Street, on either side of South Street, and Punch Bowl in the area of Halekawila Street. Of course, we have the famous Honuoka'a Cemetery, which is where the present brewery building is, just Mauka of the route, which was the 1853 smallpox cemetery. And here, another map, moving a little bit towards Alawana. We have quite a lot of clusters of findings in that area around the Queen Street extension. Of course, we have the Ward Villages and other projects in that area in which iwi kupuna have been found, shown by the red triangles. Again, a little bit about the context of these finds. When we have dug trenches in urban areas, typically in Kaka'ako and particularly Kaka'ako, we find a pattern that repeats itself again and again and again. We have a fill layer. We have generally coral fill. Underneath that we have the incinerator fill, land fill that's typical of Kaka'ako. The land reclamation project that went on ever since the beginning of the 1900s. And then below that layer, we have usually a fairly thin sand layer that's not more than a couple of feet thick. And that is right above the water table, and that is right above the coral substrate that forms the basis for underlying Honolulu. And of course, in that sand layer, which can be no more than 2 or 3 feet thick, that's where virtually all of the findings in Kaka'ako occur. And that's where we expect these findings to occur in this project. So we can predict the depth fairly well. And you dig a profile, you dig a trench in Kaka'ako, you're very likely to find this pattern. And the sand deposits are distributed like a mosaic across the landscape. You cannot determine or predict where these sand deposits are going to occur. We have some challenges here. Doing an inventory survey in an urban environment is not easy. And on this scale, I would say it's never been done before in Hawaii. We have safety requirements, quite extreme. We have traffic control requirements, and we have limited working hours. As many of you know, having waited in traffic for people to clean up the street after construction. We also we're facing the possibility of extensive night work. This is fine, we can work at night. However, it's hard to see. Sometimes you take a chance of missing things. And we have this complexity of utilities. This one shows a gas line. Before we dig, of course, we have to locate all the utilities. We don't want to go digging up people's electric lines and gas lines. So we do a one-stop process. They come out, they'll flag or mark the utility lines, and we have to avoid them. You can see electric, I think there's a gas line, which is shown in yellow, and an electric line here, which is shown in red. So we expect Kaka'ako to be loaded with these kinds of utilities. It's just going to be a spider web of these things. We'll have to work with that. Okay, we have also safety requirements for shoring of trenches, and sometimes this impedes our ability to properly record the profiles and investigate the trench for finds. And by the way, back to that sand deposit I was talking about, is we do not excavate, when we find that sand deposit, we do not excavate that with mechanical equipment. That's all that work is done by hand because of the possibility of findings. We have also backfilling and surface reconstruction requirements. You don't just backfill the trench, tap it down, and put a little asphalt on it and drive away. The DOT and the city have very strict requirements for reconstructing a busy thoroughfare, and we will have to follow that procedure. The methods we use, ground penetrating radar, is a up-and-coming technology for non-intrusive investigation of possible archaeological finds. We have experimented in various parts of Honolulu with historic human remains detection dogs with mixed results. And of course the old standby open excavation, which you just have to dig a hole in the ground to find out what's there. And of course the laboratory analysis, charcoal speciation, radiocarbon dating, and pollen analysis. The ground penetrating radar, this has become pretty routine in archaeological investigations in Hawaii. It's not a sure thing, and that's why when we find something with this machine, it's called an anomaly, it's not called a find. And we can, however, we can create an image somewhat like this. After the GPR is gone over, we go back to the office, we process the information, we can create a nice image there that shows the depth of the anomaly and the pretty precise location of that anomaly in the trench. Then when we go back to excavate the trench, we can be especially careful in that area, even though we don't know what it is. We're just more cautious about it. Okay, then we have the historic human remains detection dogs. Okay, and this has been a really interesting prospect here, and this has been investigated. The use of these dogs has been investigated especially for this project because we don't want to leave anything unturned. The results have been mixed. This particular slide shows progressive excavation of a trench with a dog running around and pointing to certain finds, and it turns out to be, the dogs are very sensitive, but they find things that aren't necessarily of significance. So it's very difficult to predict what the dog is going to do, or it's very difficult to use that activity of the dog to predict anything. But I see people smiling, but you know, we do try everything. And we were very nice to the dogs too. Okay, and then we have our old standby open excavation. And again, this is a slow process. Sometimes we get finished 2 trenches a day in these urban environments, sometimes just 1. And the laboratory analysis, I explained, involves any time we find wetland deposits or charcoal, we try to date those to see if, predict the age on the basis of radiocarbon analysis. And also pollen analysis of wetland sediments tell us about previous vegetation and plant communities. Okay, so now to this excavation strategy. I guess you call it the sampling strategy. We would like to sample all areas, and we will be sampling all areas of ground disturbance. Sample, not excavate all areas of ground disturbance. We will plan to do more intensive sampling in sensitive areas as determined by previous finds and historic land use, which we have already gone over. Sampling will include station locations, column locations, utility relocations, and other project-related ground disturbing activity. And again, as I've said previously, sampling is based on the footprint of the project as laid out in the preliminary plans. Once we find something, or once we've finished this process, then the findings will be used to protect and avoid cultural resources and adjust the interim and final designs for the completion of the design process. Okay, now a little bit about these maps. I want to recognize Todd Tolshin, who's here, who's very skillfully put together these maps and done a lot of beautiful overlays. You're not going to be able to see much on these slides. You're also not going to be able to, you're going to be able to see a little bit more on the handouts. But if you go over to the smart boards after, you can really get into it, because you can blow any segment up and you can look at it in great detail. We will be there to explain all the different keys of the different colors and what they mean. So I really encourage you to partake of that process, and it's really cool. So we have just an overview. Let me back up here. Just an overview. The red dots show where at the present time we are proposing to test. There's going to be a lot of testing going on in this section. This shows the western section, and this one shows overlaying on the Land Commission awards and the route of the transit. And this shows the eastern section. And there's, of course, the dots are bigger than they're actually going to be on the ground, and there's just a lot of dots following the route. And we have two keys for where we propose the testing pits to be, testing trenches to be. One is the red one, which are in streets or landscaped areas. The other is the blue one, which has a constraint of being inside a building. And the fact that we want to test inside a building does not make it impossible. We have done that before. You just take a backhoe inside a building and you tear up the concrete and you go for it. You have to ask permission first, of course. But it's been done all over. Okay, so then let's look at it a little more closely. Here, let's look at areas for utility relocation. And I want to point out here that, and now you can see some of the keys on the bottom that you can really get into with the smart boards. You see, Jimmy told me the name of these things. Straddle fence. Boy, what a name. Okay, so we have columns that go straight up, and then the train is going to go, the train track is going to be supported on that single column. And we have straddle vents, which are two columns going up with a straddle in between. So, and you can see these, and you'll be able to see them on the smart boards a lot better. I have a pointer somewhere. And one of the difficulties of doing this testing is we want to find areas that we think are less disturbed than other areas. There's no point in digging where there are former utilities. We want to dig in areas where we're likely to find something that are less disturbed, so we can ultimately avoid these areas. And this shows the proposed trenching for the utility relocation. And the utility relocations are shown in green, by the way. Okay. And here, testing in the Alamoana area. Here we have more straddle vent columns. We have a series of trenches going all the way down Kona Street. Virtually every column in that area will be tested. And we also have put in trenches that cover the utility relocations. Now, the testing at the stations. And by the way, I would point out that if we did a fairly rough calculation of the total amount of ground disturbance for this project, about 96% of it is going to be utility relocation and other disturbances. The other 4 or 5% is going to be the stations and the columns. However, important to make a distinction that many of the utility relocations will be shallow. That the depth will vary depending on what kind of utilities involved. And we also have the flexibility built into the utility relocation that is not built into the columns and the stations. So we want to make sure that we locate the findings in the areas that need to be adjusted, carefully adjusted to avoid them. And that, of course, is the stations and the columns. Here, this shows the Middle Street Transit Station. And by the way, the dash line is the station elevated above, and the solid line is an ancillary building that's associated with the use of the station. And of course, that has blue trenches in it because there is an existing building there. And again, I want to point out that this is the first run on the concept of where to put these trenches, and we're certainly throughout this process there will be other trenches put in other areas that are not part of the inventory survey plan, depending on the extent and location of the findings. Okay, Kalihi Station, you can see the red marks there. We're proposing to sample the columns that hold up the station, as well as I think there are 10 trenches proposed for the station itself. And Balama Station, we have stations throughout the footprint. Trenches throughout the footprint of the station. Iwilei Station, 5, and of course that's an area that this is Kuwili Fish Pond, by the way, shown in gray. We know from previous projects in the area that fish pond has been filled. We do not expect findings in the fish pond itself, except for, of course, for the fish pond deposits, which can tell us a lot, but we do not expect archaeological material other than the wetland sediments associated with the pond. Chinatown Station. Here we have a number of trenches, and I want to point out there is a line that shows the previous shoreline. I think it's in the next one. But we have also plotted on these maps the shoreline that was extant in 1847, I believe. And we have minimized the trenching Mackay of that shoreline on the assumption that everything Mackay of that, or most of the areas Mackay of that would have been filled and would not have been used for habitation. It's in the ocean at that time. And we have the downtown station at the bottom of Acacia Street. And this is, you can see the yellow line at the top of the slide. That marks the former shoreline, the 1847 shoreline. And so the entire station footprint would have been in the water, probably up until 20, 30, 40 years after 1847. However, we are putting one trench in there, or proposing one trench to verify that. And of course, if it's not verified, if the map was wrong, we'll be digging more trenches. Civic Center Station, this is the really sensitive area, Halekuila Street. We're proposing 12 trenches there. And now to Kaka'ako Station. You can see the trenches there. 9 trenches there we're proposing. And finally, Ala Moana Center with the straddle bed columns. and the stations, the trenches for the footprints of the stations. And by the way, on these maps, we're also showing the Land Commission awards and the previous fines, all in layers. And you'll find all of those layers, as I said before, in the smart boards. Okay, so let's summarize all of this. Again, it's important to point out the purpose of all this study is to avoid archaeological resources, especially burials. In order to do this, the design that we're working off is only preliminary, and our findings will continue to inform the interim and final design phases. Again, all burial finds will be treated as previously identified according to Hawaii administrative rules, and there will be full consultation with lineal and cultural descendants and the Oahu Island Burial Council and interested parties. Consultation throughout this process will be ongoing. This is just the beginning. I think that's okay. I think that's it. Contact information here, and Matt, and Dave, and Todd, and I are here to help answer any questions, as are all the other members of the team. And I want to thank you very much, and I hope that was not burdening with technicalities, but we find it very interesting, and we find this thing very, very challenging. So we need your help to try to improve it. And again, I want to thank Todd for his expertise in putting together these maps. Aloha.
Thank you. We're going to take a little bit of time to bring the camera up, but while we do that, I want to explain a couple of things. We mentioned earlier that input's important, so I wanted to explain a little bit about how information is being recorded so that everybody's aware. First of all, as you notice, we have a camera, so the entire meeting is being videotaped, and the camera is being brought up in front so that as people have comments or questions, we can actually videotape that portion of the meeting as well. Second, you may notice we have a court reporter on this side of the room who is actually going to be taking all of the comments and questions verbatim, so that we have a written record of all the information that's shared with us. As we have those comments and questions made tonight, we will also have two people helping out in the front on the chart paper who will be jotting down kind of the key points that are brought up in any comments or questions that come up. We mentioned earlier, after the 1 hour period for, kind of verbal presentations, we did want to offer the smart boards that you see on this side of the wall. And as Hal mentioned, these are pretty interesting pieces of equipment where you can actually go in there and take a look at the maps and be able to kind of enlarge them so that you can get real specific and be able to maybe pinpoint areas on the map that you want to point out as areas of interest or that might have some information that you want to share about that particular location. We also have, that you were given earlier, comment cards, so that if speaking in front or maybe you won't be able to stay for the smart boards or going to some of the other parts of the room, you can write down comments, and then if you want someone to contact you to get, to speak with you about information you might have, then please fill these out as well, and you can give these over to any of the staff that will be at these locations in the event that you either leave early or you're more comfortable with this process. And lastly, after the question and comment period, we will be opening it up so that everybody has a chance to go and talk to staff directly. And we'll be introducing some of those staff as well so that you might see someone you know or someone you're more comfortable with or someone with the information that you want so that you can go and get that as well. I'm going to call Amy up because I know there's quite a lot of material. By the way, there's one more way you can get information to us. You may not want to do this, but if there's something on the map that you know that is there that we should know about, please use the map. You can give it to us. I'm sure we got some extra copies so you can get that page back and be able to take it with you. But that's one other way of getting information over to us. So Amy's going to come up and just kind of go over with you all of the other materials that you received when you came in tonight.
As Joe said, the maps are for your use to take home or to provide us with comments. We'd appreciate that. Some people will be easier. We also provided a summary of many of the text on the slides that were in the PowerPoint presentation today, so that you can take home and have that with you as a handout. We've also provided a meeting recap of the Traditional Cultural Properties Consultation Meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. February 12th. So we wanted to give you some feedback about that meeting. So that is a handout for you. We also made some copies of sections of the programmatic agreement dealing with the archaeological inventory survey, and 6 pages of the full programmatic agreement we excerpted for your review on this particular topic. We do have full copies of the programmatic agreement if you'd like to see that. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, we had about 15 people sign up because they wanted to say something publicly. And again, we need the information. We'd like everybody to have a chance to be able to speak. So please be aware that there are others who are also wanting to come up and speak as well. So if you haven't had the chance, what we'll do is we'll go through the names of all of those that told us they wanted to talk. And then when we're done, we'll open it up to anyone else that might want to say something, okay? The first person that signed up to speak was Uncle Aka DeFries. By the way, we have someone with him, my Uncle Aka. He'll be right there to help you.
The question is that there's companies out there that does research on pertaining to mining bodies. If you know Unlimited Construction Company, that company is a fantastic company. When they do jobs, they get these guys working for them. These guys, eyes, I like dogs, you know, they can bark, but I mean, I like eyes and ears. What I mean is that there is companies out there, and if they have a pre-job, I like to know what Kiewit is a funny company. Kiewit, you know what they are self-insured. And when you're self-insured, that's no good, the company. The company, when they go self-insured, they hire a lot of attorneys. When they tell you they will give you something, like I'm talking about, my brother was supposed to get an award for him, he got hurt on the job. They give me 1/3. So I told him, hey, I'm going to put a lien on them guys. Because they say on the beat, they guys get that first of all, 453 million. They like give you 1/3. I said, hell with that. And hell with your attorney. The unions will get good attorneys. We have a lot of self-insured attorneys. But they like play the game. Attorneys, who get the best attorneys? The best attorneys. If we can put a lien on Kiewit, and Kiewit is a company, you guys gotta go check the guys' equipment when they bring in things. And they like bringing their own boys. That's what I don't like about that company. When they bring in their own boys, they don't give a damn. They're just gonna dig away, man. But I'm gonna be there. And they don't like me to be on that project. Because I'm gonna yell and scream.
Thank you. By the way, this is Kim, who'll be helping this end, and this is Lonnie. And as different people speak, they'll be taking turns so that if you want to look at the paper to make sure your points are getting across, they're taking turns so that you'll be able to keep up with who's taking the notes on your comments. Next was Ron Lockwood. You have to leave. Okay. All right. Rita Kanui.
Oh, okay. Aloha. Yes, my name is Kavehi Kanui,
Okay.
but I could read it down there. I am from Waimanalo. This is my first meeting, attending this meeting, and I found out by being at the burial meeting that this meeting was happening. And I just want to say that I'm a Hawaiian national. I don't agree with this project. Basically because it's taking lands away from our people. If you look at your maps, there are what is called mahele. And then there's also the LCAs on that. Those lands belong to people. You know, it's not about dead people. It's not about, the people today that live here. Kalamayahu. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody. We've done our genealogy, we've done our work. We're not Americans, but we find ourselves bombarded by Americans. I'm not anti-American. I'm just saying that there is not enough sensitivity coming from this project with regards to the people, Hawaiians, basically, who have native tenant rights. You cannot build this thing without settling with everybody. And I looked at the list, and I have Choke family on this list. Yes, they're dead, but many of them are living today. We are the descendants of these people. So legally, because the way that Hawaii became a state is not legal, so why are you folks continuing on this road without conferring with us first? This project came up years ago. Nobody came to tell us, oh, you know what, Auntie, we need to sit down and talk with you. I feel Uncle's pain, what he's saying. Yes, you know, those are the kind of things that they do to our people. So, I don't know what I can add to this, except that please don't take our land. We have people in prison who are coming home. We have homeless people on the beach that need a place. And they are all native tenants, maybe they are related to these people. And they have to have their land, at least a quarter acre for themselves. Under the Mahalo, it guaranteed lands. And just because this is a state does not give you folks the right to take these things away from us. You want it, you pay for it. You come call and consult with us. I'm not looking for the money. I want to put our people on the land. Okay? So I'm here, I wear different hats in the community. I'm here as a po'o for the Hewa Hewa Ohana Council, as well as the Hawaiian Kingdom Law Office. And our project is determined by helping our people. The ones in prison, the ones who's on the homeless list, who's out there on the beach, being kicked around from park to park. And then you have those people, the 50% and less people, who are kicked to the curb by the state again. And then you have people out there, Hawaiians, that have one drop of Hawaiian blood that don't even know that they have lands. And you folks are taking over their land before they even realize, oh, gee, you never tell us that. Well, we're trying to tell you folks now. They're going to build a rail. What are you folks going to do about it? That's our job. And we have to take this list, and Kaleo said he was going to get that list for us to sign up for our families who are on this list, and he didn't bring it. So who is going to bring that? I mean, we can't have this go on and on and on and on. You know? Somebody ought to speak up for these people. I know there's people in this room that came here to speak up for their family. I'm here to speak for my family. And on this list, I can see 30 of them. When were they going to talk to our people? When? Now, in the third or fourth stage, it's kind of late. We really need to get to that table. That's what I'm like, my mana'o. I looked at everything and it just breaks my heart to see all these layovers and billions of dollars. What about our people over here in Hawaii? How are we going to get them houses? That's good you're going to get the rail, but I don't think everybody should pay for this thing. I really don't. I think it's unfair. And it's illegal. I believe it is, as a Hawaiian national. So that's my mana'o. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kupuna Reeves.
Aloha.
Aloha.
I just want to tell you that I come from Hawaii. I'm Kupunahena, Wahili mai kai o Kahumanu Kili Ulanani Ole o Kalama Reed. I born and raised in Hawaii for generations. I take myself back thousands of years. I want you folks to know that plan that you have, I am to protect all Hawaii from the mountain to the sea. 300 miles out and right around the island My dad is Nuhikani, and my mom is Victoria Po'omano Kuneba. We are 100% Hawaiian, and we have thousands and thousands of families on the Kahuna line, the Polo A, Kawawa Mahi, and it takes all the islands to Hawaii. And I am Kamehameha first, and I can say on and on and on, and you will find me everywhere on the island. I just came back from Hawaii. I just want to let you know that I am to protect all of Hawaii, and I am raising my issue now to let you know that I am to protect all the hills, all the trails, all the pool, and all the caves, all the mountain, everything from the mountain to the sea. 300 miles, that means our ancestors is buried on all the islands. My dad is the top Kali. If you look into genealogy, it takes you thousands of years back. And I'm not talking about today. Yeah, plenty of people came on the land, and they act like they own the land, but they don't. The EV shows proof and evidence of our people way before white man came, and many generations. I want you folks to know that I am not discriminating you. I am here to fix the problem that everybody is raising up an issue here. And I understand what that lady is saying. Everybody that's saying, I'm pure Hawaiian. I have no fear to speak. I went to Kauai and I did the same thing, saying, every moku, that means moku. Do you understand moku? You know what that is? The top of the mountain. It shows the mo'i and chiefess of every island. I am connected to all of them. I want to tell you that I am in the White House right now. My name is up there in Obama's office. I want people to know that you need to fix us, Ohana, family of the Apua of the mountain to the sea. You will see, if you check all your genealogy, check the record, your record will never come close to us. Because we in the thousands, we're not in the 1800s when white man came. No, we're not. So I want to tell you folks, I'm not discriminating everybody. I'm here to fix and save my ancestors that buried on the land. Every grave you find on every Apua is my ancestors. I have the genealogy, I have no fear. And I know in my heart that I am assigned to protect them and protect the living too. That means,
So maybe, when after we follow the question part, maybe you can help us with the smart board. If there's places
well, if I give you, you're going to get books and books and books. You cannot take on my record. You know why? Why would I give you? When you don't have no relationship to me, why would I give you? My record is for all our people on the Kahuna line and the royalty line. And my job is to protect what you folks are teaching over here. All of you folks, why you putting that thing when you guys living? Contact all the living descendants. We're still living. There's thousands of us still living. You see this name over here? It's Kamehameha. Kahuna. Only him alone is 15,000. Are you going to fix all of Hawaii? 15,000. I don't think anybody understands that this is something, it's not only today, it's thousands of years. I am the Huna line. That means I'm connected with the Indian too. So if anybody want to raise issue against me, I am Kupuna Hana Wahini Maikai o Kau Manukali Ula Nani Ole Okalama. Kare read And I'm going to tell you, I am fighting for our people. There are thousands of homeless here. I take it from Mahalo all the way to Waimea, the Big Island, half of Hawaii. We have the same problem over here. The homeless people, all of them are all mostly Hawaiian. What's wrong with the picture? We got thousands of land over here, and we cannot even take care of them. Something is wrong over here. We need to fix it before we put that thing up there. We need to take all our ohana on the road and give them a place to stay, like human beings.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm raising the issue about that too.
Thank you. How about?
Aloha no kako, mahalo for the opportunity to offer some mana'o and to ask a few questions. I'm one of 4 members on the Oahu Island Burial Council's Rail Project Task Force. So there's a set of us that were identified to assist with investigating further and having some opportunity to interface at the request of the rail project team to interface with them between Oahu Island Burial Council meetings. Of course, not making any decisions, but just having that time to inquire and ask questions and then be able to bring the discussion forward to the council for consideration and then decision making. As many of you may or may not know, I'm not sure, the Oahu Island Burial Council has consistently put forth serious concerns regarding this project on a number of counts, many counts, and we've gone on written record. So I just would like to reiterate that all of the concerns we've raised, we believe still have not been adequately addressed, and they've been recorded a number of times in written documents, and we've appreciated the opportunity that you folks have afforded for us to convey this to you numerous times. So another ditto here. So just continuing that written record and verbal record of our concerns. And I won't take the time to reiterate those now, but I do want to just ask one quick question on process and then just some specific questions on the AISP. I'm wondering what legal authority the city is resting on to forward a phased AIS under state law. We understand that the PA provides a framework to address federal law. We understand that the PA does not exempt this project from following state law. So I'm asking a very specific question. What specific state law or administrative rule allows for a phased or parceled approach to archaeological inventory survey?
At the present time, the city, there is a lawsuit against the city regarding that specific question. So unfortunately, I will not be able to respond to that question.
Okay, just some specific questions on the AISP then. I understood from the presentation, and thank you, Hal and team, for the very detailed set of materials. I understand that you folks are looking at certain high priority areas for further investigation, and it seems that you folks have identified areas where, of course, previous burials have been found and where LCAs are located as kind of rising to that level of requiring a greater amount of test pits, basically. more in-depth investigation. So if you compare, say, the area at the beginning of the pile, right, maps 1 and 2 with then maps 9 and 10, and notice they're both in the low 20s in terms of the number of test units going in. I would like to suggest that the areas of maps 9 and 10, when you get into the Halekawila area, that as compared to maps 1 and 2, they really rise to a higher level still, so that they would really require greater testing than what we see in the early phase on maps 1 and 2. And I would suggest a significantly higher number. And we see what, we've gone through many cases together, and we saw what happened at Ward Villages when you put even 2 more test units in, what a difference that would have made right in that, where we found that cluster, right? So I think it would be well worth everyone's while if more energy is spent in that downtown area. Mahalo.
Thank you. George Copeland, did you sign up to speak?
I just had a couple questions.
Hi, my name is George Copeland, and I assisted doing some of the video documentation on the EV sniffing dogs, and there was a mention of the mixed results, and I was just wondering, are the results public record at this point, and what exactly are the results, and for them to be, I was just curious about that. It doesn't need to be answered right away, I was just kind of curious about it.
Maybe we can. Yeah.
Just briefly to answer the question, the results will be part of the AASP. It'll be an appendix. It'll have the results where we tested, what the results were, and with figures and maps and that sort of thing. So it will be part of our flushing and third plan we're preparing now. Okay.
Is that something you're submitting to the city then, right? Is that right? Oh, okay. And then, anyway, I of course, spending time on the project, I was just curious about it, and I was pretty amazed at what the dogs can do. And it'd be interesting to see what those results are. Thanks.
Thank you. There are Z Aki. Right.
Hello, my kako, oval ozi, noepi umayel. Kamaha nova, ike yamo heva, mamake no ho'i wau, ika pono, no lila iko umnao. I would like to talk more about law and the consideration of law. And mahalo to aunties and uncle for bringing up certain things regarding iwi kupuna, because I am a lineal descendant and I do have ohana who's on the list. Concerning law, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People would consider it a crime against humanity to destroy one's culture. And I was wondering if there had been any consideration of this, which, as I understand it, Obama did recently sign. But moving along on that matter, it is a Kanaka culture that a person can die 2 times. When your body halas, when your body returns. And the second time is when your bones are desecrated. Never dry out in the sun the bones of your ancestors. That's the second time you can die. So I would say that it's also a crime against humanity concerning genocide, the systematic killing of a people. And when you destroy one's culture, I believe that you can also destroy a people that way. And as I understand it, in the Hawaii State Legislature, there's a committee being formed to review the executive agreement between Queen Liliuokalani and U.S. President Grover Cleveland. What this concerns is the occupation of Hawaii by the United States. So it is a serious matter if a committee is being formed to review that process. And so, with that said, international rules concerning occupation do come into play. And building this rail would be a violation of those international rules of occupation. So I am a Hawaiian national, I am a KANAKA Maoli, and I don't agree with this for many reasons, and some of the few have been voiced here. And I guess if you can continue to accept genocidal practices, if you can continue to do these knowing that, then I'd just like you to know that that's happening. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo. Brandy Hayden.
Hello, my name is Brandy. I'm from Waipi'o, an area where the rail is planned to go through. As a Hawaiian national, as a Kanaka Maoli, as a taxpayer to the occupying government of Hawaii, I oppose this rail project. It was planned very poorly, although you have very nice concept art. It is going to cause a lot of pain, a lot of debt, a lot of suffering for people, and it's unnecessary. I don't oppose mass transit or any remedy to our current traffic problems, but I do know that other ways of addressing those issues have been brought to the city's attention, and I'd like to know why those things haven't been explored. Less costly ways, less invasive ways, ways that will not desecrate iwi kupuna, which is a very, very serious concern. I'd also like to echo Auntie's sentiment about tenant rights. Have you consulted with every tenant? I would say no, because I haven't been consulted, not until this moment. Most people haven't had an opportunity to speak on this. And I'd also like to echo what Z has formerly said about international law and state law. You may not understand or recognize that Hawaii is occupied, but I would encourage you to please look into that because it is a very serious matter. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Amelia Bora. We can record. Thank you.
I'm very loud. My name is Amelia Gora. I am one of Kalaniʻopuʻu, Kamehamehas, Kahikili of Maui, Kaumuali'i of Kauai descendants, and many others, Nu'uanu and anyway, many more. Anyway, I am in opposition to the rail. Since there was, just wanted to let you ponder, of course I have a few other things to say, but the recent disaster in Japan, the water went in 6 miles. So there's a possibility that's going to happen to Hawaii in the future. So aren't you just wasting a lot of money? And but beyond that, it's not okay to build over our ancestral graves. And I have documentation here that I'll leave with you because you're gonna need to review everything because Hawaii was premeditated and the US premeditated to take over Hawaii 6 to 8 days before they wrongfully dethroned the Queen in 1893. And this documentation was found in the New York Times. So I'll leave it for you folks to look at. And also I have a lot of websites available. And there's a lot of problematic issues. And this is all issues of genocide as well. Because the royal family still exists. So the landholders, the landowners are still here. So it's, there's a lot of things going on having to do with ongoing real claims, and we are from a neutral, nonviolent nation. And so it's just not okay. I'm against the rail. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So Dean Racer?
Well, it seems like a lot of the key issues were already brought up by Auntie Hannah. Again, also, since I also come from Pono Kealoha, and Kehao answered all the questions that legally cannot be answered, especially the piecemeal sections of the rail. But like Kehao also as an archaeologist, I have never been really in favor of this project, but at the same time, if it has to be done, then my biggest concern is for the E. Okay, go. I think, I have every high regard and every good regards for Dave, Matt, and Hal, but at the same time, because we have deeper concerns as lineal descendants through these lands, and in particular, a lot of the land that the rail goes through, it becomes a personal thing. And because of that, I think that a better plan needs to be, or an additional plan needs to be developed for better cultural monitoring. Because like everything else, in every archaeological project or every construction project in this state, there are always flaws, because it's partially because of people not being really mahalo to what's going on, or we're behind schedule. So, well, did you see this? And I'll give you a perfect example, and this happens to be Pono Kealoha. About 2 years ago, I got a call from someone. It was a construction worker along the area from Kealoha Airport going into Kailua, where they keep widening the road every other week because the traffic gets worse. Okay. The construction worker called us and said, we found some EV today. And the boss told us, if anybody says one word to anybody here, you all are going to get fired. Okay. He said, well, call me. The guy said he would call us later on where to meet. And the next day he didn't call. We went down where we were supposed to, where we were planning on meeting him. Nobody showed up. We went down to the construction site, and every single construction worker with koko had lucky around his neck, but not one would say a word. So, I mean, it's not Cultural Survey's problem. Maybe, Uncle, there may be problems with Queer, but we don't know yet. But at the same time, we all need to be maka'awa. So a monitoring program, if this is going to proceed, needs to be nailed down as close and as tight as can be. And it needs to be done now, before they break ground.
Thank you. Kai.
Okay, aloha. I'm gonna kind of change a little bit and not talk about everything that was shared, because that's very important. I'm concerned about the number of people are here. We have, the way I looked at it, first question I had, we have a lot of staff here and not enough community, well, not enough our Hawaiians. And I think we still need to go and outreach more and not only be this one meeting. You have to go out. And you must do, I think, a better job of not only gathering in a big group, But you need to go into smaller groups, go into the communities around here, and hold their simple meetings. Because sometimes these kind of meetings are not appropriate. Again, the way I look at it, we have so much staff here. I'd rather listen to our people and their manao, but also you guys gotta listen to them in a smaller community, because auntie, uncle, brother, sister speaks better in a smaller capacity than it is here. So that's my only manao I want to share.
Thank you all.